Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Andy's Shed Live. This is for Sunday the 12th of January 2025. Still haven't got used to saying that yet. Just can't get used to saying 2025, but yeah, that's what it is for, and that is what it is today in actual fact. Right, got to have a little look who we've got around and about in the chat and things. Right, let's have a little look. Oh, Wesley's here and Christopher's here as well. Hi guys. They are both with us so far in the old chat today. Remember, if you want to join us in the chat, you can. It's in the YouTube chat. Just search Andy's Shed on YouTube, look for the live stream on there, which you've probably found already if you're watching this. Of course, if you are watching it live, that is. If you're watching it back, unfortunately you can't take part in the chat, but you can see what we're talking about because it's all there somewhere. So you can see what's going on. Right, a little bit shorter show perhaps than normal today, and then we are not on next week. Yeah, we are having a week off next week while I sort of go and do some other things. I could do with recharging my batteries, to be quite honest. Like an electric car, I'm about flat at the moment. So yeah, could do with having a reset. I could at the moment, really could. I feel absolutely drained today. I've got a really achy leg for some reason today. I've got no idea what's going on. But yeah. So what's everybody been up to? Have you all been doing anything exciting? Christopher says, do you see the photos that I've sent? No, I can't remember seeing them, Christopher, but then I get so many emails that I never know what I've got or what I've not. Wesley says, did you get your street lamp wired up? No, not yet, Wesley. No, that's a long way off project, because apart from anything else I've got to get the lamp post here that it's going on. So that might be a fairly slow project, shall we say. But yeah, because eventually it's going to go on a cast iron lamp post and all that. So I've actually got two street lamps. I've got one that goes on the corner of a building, or possibly on a telegraph pole, which is the sodium one, which I've got the bulb for down here. And I've also got one that takes a normal, like 100 watt incandescent bulb, which is an old Esler street lamp, which is a wonderful old sort of cast iron thing with little mirrors glued onto it. That the idea years ago. They'd certainly got them around Chesterfield into the 1970s, some of the suburbs around Chesterfield, because as a kid I can remember them. But I found one in somebody's back garden, and they wanted rid of this lamppost out of the back garden that got this Esler street lamp on it, so I went and took the lamppost down for them and claimed the street lamp that was on it. So that was good. Christopher says he's got his phone line wired up to his new shed. I wish I had time to get things done, Christopher. I don't know how you manage it. Just not enough hours in a day. Neville's here as well. Hi, Neville. He says hi all. So yeah, one or two people are joining us in the old chat there. We have had one telephonic arrival this week. We've had a 706 arrive. It's absolutely nothing special about it either. It's just a very bog standard 706, but I will show it to you anyway. Here it is. It's 706 that has been get it on there, that has been altered. It's been back to the factory turned into a 706F batch sample 75 so it went back to the factory in 1975. The original thing, I think it says here, is 706, and then I think I worked out that it said 67. I think it's a GNA 67/1, so I think it was made in 1967, and so that makes it difficult, because if it just says 706 on the bottom and it was made in 1967, that's the same year that the 746 came out. So it is not beyond the realms of possibility that it was like this with the blanks around and the 746 type finger wheel. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that it was like that from new. That is quite possible. So I don't think this one will be getting the original look put back on it, because it might have been like this from new, this one. So but as you can see again, it's Concord blue, which they so often are. Yeah, they so often are Concord blue. And people say Concord blue is the rarest colour, but as we said last week, I don't think it is. The interesting thing about this one is the handset doesn't match the rest of it. So if you look at it, the handset is very yellowed, because when these yellow, because they're made out of ABS, when the plastic ages and yellows, of course this blue colour and yellow to it is green, so it goes this sort of greeny colour, which I don't think is an unpleasant shade of green. I quite like this dark green that they go. But that's gone green, that little blanking piece in there's gone green, but the case and that isn't. So that's making me wonder if the case is a replacement. Well, I suppose it was in 1976, but does that mean this went green before 1976? I don't know. I wouldn't like to say. I can't try it at the minute. It's not got a line code on it. The dial at the minute, although it does dial, it's very hard to turn. You know, there's some resistance when you turn it, and that's because the little clutch in the dial will be stuck. When they're hard to turn, doesn't necessarily stop them from working for when they come back at the right speed, but what it is, when they're hard to turn, is that little clutch thing in the dial mechanism that will be stuck and will either need freeing up or possibly replacing. They do sometimes need replacing those. So that is what is likely wrong with it. Yeah, do we get any clues by taking the handset apart as to dates? Because sometimes you find a date on things in here. Right. Well, I think that element in there is dated 1978. So that's a replacement. That doesn't help us much. What about in this end? Let's take this end apart. So have we got a date or anything on here that I can read? STC. Looks like that's saying 76. On there as well. So looks like it had all its bits replaced, which sounds about right, doesn't it? It's interesting though, this one, because you will note it's got the plastic carry handle fitted as well. The GPO never used a metal carry handle. When they put a carry handle on, they used a plastic one, and it never feels up to the job. It always bends a bit. These carry handles always do feel a bit weak and hopeless. But the metal ones that you see were an Ericsson thing. The chromium ones or the stainless steel ones, they were an Ericsson thing, but never used by the GPO. So that's a proper but rubbish GPO carry handle on there, so you can pick it up and do that. Of course, on a 746 it's built into the actual case, the handle, so it doesn't need a retrofitted handle like that. Alright, so where can I put that now? I'll put that down here for a minute, out of the way. So that's the latest rifle. We've got a much more interesting rifle hopefully coming this week, by the way. So keep your eyes peeled this week. There might be something much more interesting arriving a little bit later this week. Right, what are people up to in the chat? Because the chat is going absolutely mental. Right, what are people saying in the old chat? Christopher says he's got a telephone working in his shed. Excellent. Also found in 1969 746F Mark 1 on Australian eBay. He's put a bid on. Wesley says, have a look at the manufacturer moulding code. Probably different between base and handset. Yeah, probably. I never know what the moulding codes are, Wesley. I can never remember what the moulding codes are. I know. Wait, did Christopher put in an overhead feed to his shed? Yeah, did you put like phone poles up between your house and your shed, Christopher? That would have been rather good. You put up phone poles, yeah. Oh, Bills is here. Hi, Bills. He says, good evening, Andy. I've been working on some of my 746s today. Bell clapper got stuck. Yeah, that does happen occasionally. Christopher says, yes, I did put up an overhead wire. Excellent. Bill says, Andy, how would I get a standard old bell working? Is it red and white lines? Right, Bills. Do you mean a standalone bell? Not a bell in a phone? Do you actually just mean a standalone bell that you've got? Because if it's just a standalone bell, then yeah, the easy way to do it is just to wire up the red and the white from your GPO socket. So you've got a standard cable plugged into your GPO socket. If it's the standard colours in the cable, it will be red, white, blue and green. Use the red one and the white one and just wire those up to the line A and B of the bell, and that's the easy way to do it. You might get a bell tinkle though if you're using a phone on another extension. You might get a bell tinkle. And also, all your phones might not ring because the bell that you've wired in might be for REN, the ringer equivalence number. And if it uses that many REN, then there won't be enough power left necessarily in your line to ring the bells on any other phones you've got, particularly if you've got another old-fashioned phone wired in to another extension. The way to sort this out is you need to put a 3.3 kilo ohm resistor, like we normally put into the phones, somewhere in the circuit in your bell set. Let me get this right. Yeah, like, let's say the red leg coming in, 3.3 kilo ohm resistor, through your first bell coil, then through your second bell coil, then back out down the white, or the other way around. Doesn't matter which side you put it, but you've got to put a 3.3 kilo ohm resistor in there, really. Otherwise, if you have more than one phone plugged in, it might not work. It'll work, that one will work if there's no others plugged in, but it'll be gobbling up all the power, so that's why you need the resistor. The bell should still ring with the resistor in circuit, because obviously you're sending less power through that bell. It should still ring, but it will then allow for, it might be a very slightly weaker ring, but it won't be noticeable, but then it will be saving up enough power, if you like, to ring one in another room or something. That's as I understand it anyway. Somebody feel free to chip in there if I'm wrong in any way on that. Because I have been known to be wrong occasionally. So yeah, if I'm wrong, just let us know. Right, I'm just going through the chat. Wesley says, "Open it and I'll explain," says Wesley. What it says, you need to wire the bell to what goes to 3 and 5 on your master socket. So that would be the bell wire, Wesley. Would 2 and 6 not work though? No, 2 and 5 rather. Would 2 and 5 not work, Wesley? It just might make the bell tinkle. 3 and 5 on the master socket is the blue and, is it blue and red or blue and white? Can never remember which way around they are. Christopher says his shed's phone line doesn't get connected straight to the home phone line. It gets connected through the PBX for pulse to DTMF. Excellent. So you can phone from your house to your shed then, Christopher, if that's the case. It sounds like. Yeah? Does that work? House to shed? Yeah. Brilliant. I like it. Very good, that. Yeah. Alright, just let me see if this is going to come up now. That's better. Right. So I'm still getting used to the reinstalled OBS software on my computer. Ever since the computer died, things are all a bit different. I'm still getting used to it. Wesley says, no, the red and the white wires don't work for the bell, because that puts it straight across the line without it being decoupled via the capacitor. But is the capacitor, I think he's talking about still using the capacitor that's in the bell set though, Wesley. I think that's what he's on about. I think he's thinking of a bell with a capacitor in the bell set. Or is he? He might not be actually. Yeah. Are we talking about a bell with a capacitor in it, Bills, or one without a capacitor in it? And the capacitor will be either a square or round metal, long metal tube thing about yay long, possibly if it's an old bell set, and about that thick. Where it says, can Christopher get beckoned when dinner is ready? Yeah, that's quite good. You know, I don't know anybody who actually uses these PBXs to call within the house sort of thing. Whereas it says it's just an extension bell. Right, so it's probably not. Right, Wesley's probably right then, I think. Bill says there's no capacitor in the bell thing, just an induction coil. Are you sure, Bills? I wouldn't expect there to be an induction coil if there's no capacitor. Why would there be an induction coil in there if there's no capacitor? Why would there be an induction coil in there anyway if it's just a bell set? Yeah, it's a bit hard to say without seeing it, Bills, this. Yeah. Wesley, I'm going to let you take over on this one, because I'm struggling to visualise what he's talking about now. So, Bills, is it a wooden bell set that we're talking about here? Is it a wooden bell box, like a square or slightly rectangular one? You know, like it goes with a candlestick phone. Is it something like that that we're on about? Have you got a number on it anyway? Have you got a model number on it? They're often stamped in the back if it's a wooden one. You know, they're not always easy to read because they're just like stamped into the wood sometimes. But it should be there. If it's an XGPO one, it should be there. Then if we can find out what model it is, we can maybe give you slightly better directions, because we should then know what's in it. Christopher says, the main thing is now I've got a phone in my shed, I don't have to run to the house when the phone rings. Bill says, it's just a wooden bell box, 1A. Right. Right then, Wesley, I believe a 1A... Does a 1A have an induction coil in it then? I'm going to have a look. I'm just going to have a little look and see if I can find out. Find a schematic for a bell set 1A. Right, a 1A should not have an induction coil in it. as far as I can see. Just bear with me one moment. Right, if I can now open that. Just a second. Right. Now. Right, so as far as I can tell, what you've got, Bills, is this. Does that look familiar? That is a bell 1A. So it shouldn't have anything in it other than the two bell coils. Now, I'm not sure what is going on there, because it appears to have 4 terminals, but I think it's because the two coils are not actually joined together at the top. So I think what those 4 terminals are, I think it's like, go from the left to the right, I think it's like the positive going into one coil, then the next one to it is the exit from that coil, then the next one to that, which it's bridged to, if you look, there's a little link in it, is the entry to the other coil, and then on the right hand side it's the exit from the second coil. So I think if you've got that, I think you put your two wires onto the two end terminals of that, the one on the left and the one on the right, and you don't put anything on the middle two. Now, the question is, right, the question is, what do you put them onto? You know, what do you couple them to? Do you couple them to the red and the white, or do you couple them to something else? And I'm starting to think, because there's no capacitor in there, I'm starting to think that Wesley was right. So, are we coupling up? Does it matter then, Wesley, if he couples up to white and blue or red and blue? I'm wanting to say he should couple up to blue and white, technically, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Right, does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, so you wire into the blue wire, Wesley, which is, everybody calls it the bell wire or the anti-tinkle wire or something. But you're using the blue and then you're using one leg of the line. And I don't think technically it matters whether you use the red one or the white one. I'm not 100% sure on that though. Wesley, would you like to confirm it doesn't matter which one you use? So I'm not 100% certain on that, because the current that's going through the bell set is AC anyway, isn't it? So whichever one you wire to, whether you go to the white or the red with the blue, it doesn't matter because it's alternating current, so it's changing over all the time. Yeah, so which leg is it decoupled from is the question. Yeah. Where it says if it's internal wiring, it will be the orange with the white trace and the white with the blue trace. No, I'm talking about him doing it. I think he's using an ordinary line cord to plug it in. So he's got white, red, green and blue, because I think he's plugged it in to an ordinary line cord. So the one that comes from the capacitor is blue, isn't it, Wesley? So what's the other half of that circuit? Is it the white one or the red one? Normally, because I realise they can be swapped around, but I think it's the white one. I think. I'm not 100% certain though. Yeah, it was a blooming good question that, Bills. It was a really good question that. Yeah, a superb question. Shame we don't really entirely know. I think Wesley's pointing you in generally the right direction there. In fact, I'm sure he is. Oh, Gambo is with us. Says hi, peeps. Made it. Checked on at 6:30, but no clock. Checked again, and nothing. Went to watch another video and seen you were live. Yeah, it was me. I was on the last lap as usual, Gambo. So we didn't get the leader thing with the clock on today. So yeah, right. Yeah, Bills, keep watching what Wesley's saying in the chat, because he's asking you now about how you intend connecting it, whether you're going to use an ordinary line cord with a plug on the end or whether you're going to hardwire it in and stuff, because you can do it either way, it don't really matter. But just so we tell you the right thing, we need to know what you're doing. Right, brillianto. I do believe we are getting there with it. But yeah, I've not got one of a bell set or a bell box like that to hand anywhere around here at the minute. They're all up in the loft, 2 floors up from here. So, otherwise I could grab one and show you. I think we've got one of those. But yeah, it's an interesting one. that is. But yeah, bells. Bells are easy to get. Actual bell sets, particularly bell sets with an induction coil in, very hard to get. Gambo says, belated happy birthday to Dominic. Yes, belated birthday greetings, Dominic. I don't think Dominic's here though at the minute, Gambo. So I don't know where he is actually. No, I don't think he's here, is he? Unless he's being very quiet. Perhaps he's being very quiet. Perhaps that's why we can't see him at the minute. Yeah. Anyhow, yes. Oh dear. I've got a very achy leg today. I don't know what I've done to it, but I've just got a really achy leg today. And nothing that I do makes it any less achy, you know. I sort of sit with my feet up, sit with my feet down, stand up, sit down, whatever. It don't seem to make a great deal of difference to it. Yeah. Yes. So we've not got very far this week. We've not really done much other than this new 706 coming and stuff. We have had some photos though from Arthur. Now I need to show you these really, because you remember last week we were talking Viscounts and we said we thought there was a bit of a pad in that Viscount keyboard missing. We thought the bit that actually bridges the contacts in the keyboard was missing. Well, I do actually think that is the case. So if I can find the thing that Bill sent, then I'm hoping might get somewhere. You know, he sent me this and I can't find it. They've altered email. Viscount keypad, there it is. And it's now much harder to find. Oh, he sent massive photos. That's always a pain because I can't make them smaller. Right. Right, so, we're now going to try and open up the images that Arthur has sent. Let's see if I can. Right, should be able to get that. Right, let's have a little. a little look. See, yeah. Bottom. Also crop the top out that picture. Sorry, I'm just dealing with a picture at the minute. Right. So alright. So here's pictures Arthur sends it. Now here then is a Viscount that is in bits. Shall we say? Now this is basically out where I got to last week with it. I got the keypad that you see there, the rubber keypad. I took that off the circuit board. I thought there should be something under that rubber keypad, between the keypad and the circuit board. That was my thinking, that there should be something between them, because there wasn't anything between them. So here's a closer view of the keyboard. So you can now see the keyboard there. And can you see from that picture there, it appears to be something underneath it. So he lifts the keyboard off carefully. It goes through some holes in the circuit board, but you can get it off reasonably easily if you're careful. And underneath is that. And that's the thing I've not got. Now that is the thing with those little black round blobs that you can see on there. Basically they are conductive, and they go through those little holes in that white layer there. Now on mine that I showed you last week, that white layer is clear, with that white layer with the holes in it. It's just a clear piece of plastic with holes in like that. But those little black blobs that you can see against Arthur's thumbnail there, they are conductive, and they press down onto the circuit board and bridge a gap in a track. And when they bridge the gap in the track, that registers a press of that key. And also, interestingly, that is the bit of the case that you have to be careful when you're taking the thing apart. I've gone too far. So I am a bit missing. I'm this rubber layer missing in this Viscount that I've got in bits here, and that is why the keyboard doesn't work. So I need this rubber layer, and what I'm wondering is if I can 3D print it out of some sort of flexible filament. So yeah, I'm pondering on that one right now, but that has proved that there is indeed a bit missing in the foam that I was showing you last week. So thanks to Arthur for sending us that and sorting out the mystery once and for all. Oh dear, I've got an itchy nose now. Where are we? Right. Just bear with me 1 second. Right, so I have to keep tweaking things so I can see the chat, 'cause it's too small on my screen for me to be able to read it normally. Christopher says, wiring GPO telephones in Australia is different as Australia phone system, but all my 746L phones are wired the old-fashioned way to work in my phone PBX. Yeah, so basically in the UK, we normally, in our master sockets that we have in the UK, we normally now have the capacitor that used to be in the phone is now in the master socket of your house. Your master socket, not the extension sockets, just the master socket. And that's what makes it so complicated now in the UK. Why they decided to put the capacitor in the socket, I'm not entirely sure. I believe it's something to do with testing the line. So if you've got no phones at all plugged in, they can still get a reading when they test the line, or something like that. But it makes life really difficult for us, because that's why we have to convert phones, you know, and do all those alterations with the little links in to make them work on the modern system. Yeah, going back to the thing about the bell and the line cord, where it says, I'll be as clear as I can. It says, if a standard spec BT cord, as per an 8746, etc., you need to connect the coils of the bell to the blue and the white wire with a 3.3 kilo ohm resistor somewhere in series. Yeah, so you need the blue and the white if it's wired the normal way. So I should try that first, Bill, if I were you. Dominic is here. Hi, Dominic. He says, yesterday I visited what is left of Hatfield Colliery. Very interesting site. Would make a good escape the shed, I think. Is there anything left there? Hatfield, where was I? I was at... Well, I was at Hatfield Woodhouse, so that's not far away, is it? From Hatfield Woodhouse. Yeah. Yeah, so wasn't sure anything left there then, Dominic. Wesley says, going back to the bell, if it's hardwired off of internal wiring, it should be orange with a white trace and the white with a blue trace. Again, with a 3.3k resistor in series. Depends how your internal wiring is done, though. That's much more likely to be anything, because when people do internal wiring, they use different twisted pairs for different things. For instance, I've got an 8-core cable, which is 4 twisted pairs. I think it's 8, or is it 10? Is it 5 twisted pairs? It's at least 8, anyway. It's at least 8 cores. So 4 twisted pairs running all around the house, and we use different pairs for different things. You know, so I've kind of made up the colour coding for what I'm using those pairs for. So that's a much more bespoke way of doing it. You need to know sort of what you're using all the pairs in your cable for, to be able to figure out doing it that way, Bills. But Wesley is correct, I believe, from what I remember. But I think I'd do it the normal cord way. I think you're much less likely to run into bother that way. What he says, has Maget been on recently? No, he hasn't actually, Wesley. No, he hasn't. At least not that we know of. He may have been on, because there's a lot of people that watch and then don't go into the chat for whatever reason. So he may have been on and just not been in the chat, but it's unlike him, isn't it? Because he used to be in the chat quite a lot. So yeah, I don't know what's happened to him. Hope he's okay. Yeah, if you're out there, just let us know you're alright, mate. We're going by Hatfield Colliery. Dominic says the winding houses are there, as well as the 2-foot colliery railway. There's a building next to it which might be the screens. Oh, that's interesting. Dominic said also, would you be interested in a green 746 in need of restoration and removal of painted patterns on it? Well, I could possibly be, Dominic. Can't be any worse than this one here. This isn't a 746, this is a 706, but this, when this arrived, well, it's a 706 clone, this actually. When this arrived, it was in a right state, this was. Really was in a state. I managed to sort of make it kind of passable again, but yeah, it can't be any worse than that was when it arrived. That was a right thing. But yeah, we have taken paint off of phones before. Hot soapy water is the thing, and a good fingernail. If you've got really short fingernails, that won't help, because I found, take the case off, soak the case in hot soapy water, fairly strong washing up liquid, and it needs to be a fairly powerful washing up liquid. It needs to be something like fairy liquid or something, and squirt a fair bit in there, let it soak kind of overnight in it. Then when you get up in the morning, refill the bowl with hot washing up liquid again, and then just scrape at the case with your thumbnail. Your thumbnail's a perfect thing because it won't scratch the case, your thumbnail. If you use like a screwdriver or something like that, you run the risk of scratching the case, but do it with your thumbnail, you won't scratch the case, and hopefully you can flick the paint off. That's how I get the paint off. You know, when you've had a wall foam and the wall's been painted and the foam wasn't took off the wall, there's all little splatters of like emulsion all over it. That's how I get those off. But yeah, we could do a restoration on that, Dominic. What it says, what reminded me of Maget was that we discussed the capacitor in the wall socket. It thinks it's for routiners and opt out of service register. Yeah, I think we did. You've got a good memory there, Wesley. Yeah, I think we did, but it was ages ago, that, wasn't it? Yeah, it was ages and ages and ages ago. But yeah, I do wish they hadn't done it. I do wish they'd left it alone the way it used to be, though, with just two wires coming into the phone, because it would have made life a lot easier. But yeah, yes, it would have made life a lot easier. Yeah, Hatfield Colliery though, Dominic. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, more Escape the Shed will hopefully be coming out when the weather gets a bit warmer. There's one or two that I want to do. I want to go out into the Peak District. There's one or two that I want to film in the Peak District. I've got one I want to do in Sheffield City Centre, and I've not been to Sheffield City Centre for years and years and years. But there's one that I want to do in Sheffield City Centre. Then there's a load I want to do in the Peak District, near Lytton, including some very spooky ones for Halloween. So if you like ghost stories and gory stories and stuff like that, allegedly true ones, then there could be some Escape the Sheds coming up you'll absolutely love, because I've been told some very interesting history for the area around Lytton and that, which is quite gruesome, but also really interesting. So yeah, thought I wanted to go and do it and put it out on Halloween this last year, but I just didn't get a chance to do it. Wesley says, I can remember a while ago, just can't remember yesterday. Yeah, I get that as well, Wesley. You're not on your own. I think it happens to all of us. I think we're all getting old. Yeah, it certainly happens to me. That is for sure. Christopher says, related to his 746s that he's got set up there, are the two wires with a junction box with an RJ11 on the end of the junction box. I assume that's so he can plug it into his PBX. Because some PBXs have an RJ11 that you plug your extension phones into. They have all RJ11 sockets on them, but of course this that I'm using here, this BT Revelation, doesn't have the luxury of that. You hardwire everything in and sort of push them onto like these blades that cut the wire, so you have to use a single cord wire, like, you know, the normal twisted pairs that you use for hardwiring systems up, you know, what uses a drop wire or hard wire to go around your house, the sockets around your house and things like that. Yeah, it's really complicated. Yeah. It'd be interesting to know what the 2-foot gauge railway is that still remains a Hatfield colliery though, Dominic. I wouldn't have thought that would have been left there. I thought they were snaffled that. Christopher says, I sent a photo of my 746 wiring setup in an email. Right. It might not get here, Christopher, while I'm on. That's the thing. Because things often don't get here while I'm actually on air. That's the weird part about this. It seems to slow me email down somehow while I'm actually on. I can poll my email and grab stuff out of my email, but things don't seem to go into my email from like the end of whoever's sending them. Never quite got to the bottom of that, but then I'm not really a computer expert. We do all this on a wing and a prayer, you know, really. Yeah. Talking of doing stuff on a wing and a prayer, I've not said it today, but I'll say it just in case anybody's wondering that wasn't here last week. That little thing there that you can see there, that is the new thing that we've got instead of Patreon. If you go on that link there, basically you can click on a thing and support the channel by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Andy Shed. So that's what that's about there, just in case you're wondering. Yeah, it's at buymeacoffee.com/Andy Shed. Alright, I haven't got. Oh, I have got a caption with it on. It's that. Yeah, I still not got everything set up again. You know, when you have a computer crash, it just like messes you up for like ever. It seems. It really does mess things up. Right, how are we getting on? Right, to try and get that window up, and it disappears every time I mouse over it. There it is. Yeah. Gambo says, I tried out the Buy Me a Coffee thing last week. You did indeed, Gambo, and it worked, thank you very much. It did indeed buy me a coffee. Although I've not cashed it in yet, but yeah, it did indeed work. So thanks to Gambo, and indeed to Christopher as well, who's also tried it the other week as well. Yeah, but it's a one-off thing, that unlike Patreon, that was a thing you signed up to every month. That is a one-off thing. Buy me a coffee. So yeah, it's just a thing that's there. Because people sometimes say, how can I support the channel? And I say, well, if you think we've done something good this week, just do that. And it's much simpler than Patreon, because people bang on about Patreon all the time, don't they? But you know something? It's really complicated to set up. Patreon's website is not very good. They've started messing about with Apple and things and that. And they also take a big chunk of it, Patreon. Which these Buy Me a Coffee people don't do so much. Yeah, that's why we stopped using Patreon. So yeah, because Patreon take a big chunk of what people actually give to the channel they're supporting. So we thought, enough's enough, and it's hard work, Patreon. It's really hard work to administer, because the website is not very good. Anybody who's a YouTuber and uses Patreon or anything, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. I'm just trying to follow the chat. I have a feeling this chat sort of freezes sometimes, because it's going along nicely and then all of a sudden it stops for a few minutes, and then you get a flurry of messages again. I wonder if it's freezing on my end. I think it might be a possibility, that. Right, anyhow, that is that. So, as I said, buymeacoffee.com/Andy is the thing for that. Yeah, and the telephones, they keep arriving. As I've said before, I really would like to get some sort of museum up and running at some point. I've got no idea how to do it though. The big problem is where. The big problem is finding a venue or something like that. If anybody happens to know of anything, please do get in touch. Just get on the website andyshed.coldpress.net and get in touch with us if you've got like a back room of a shop or something that could be turned into a museum. And any kind of space you're not using, please do let us know, because we'd be really interested. Also any little museums that would be interested in hosting us as a part of their display. Yeah, get in touch with us, because we've got something like about 400 telephones to go on display. Probably about 20 vintage sewing machines, some old broadcast video equipment. What else have we got? Oh, a load of old stylophones, the vintage stylophones. Can you remember the stylophones from the 1970s? Yeah, I've got quite a few of those. There were actually quite a lot of different ones. And I've got a good selection of those as well. That have, people find them really interesting actually, because I think everybody in the 1970s had one. And whenever I've taken them out and put them on public display, at special events and that before, people have gone, oh yeah, I used to have one of those. And they find them really interesting, because it's something they instantly recognise. So yeah. Dominic says it would be great to get the U-matic video machines working again. Yeah, a couple of them work, Dominic. Yeah, a couple of them work. There's a massive great wall of them now at Plesley Vale. It's like, it reminds me of the Kenny Everett show. Can you remember when Kenny Everett used to do his television programme and used to have a big wall of TV monitors behind him, like a very early video wall. Well, I've done it, but not with the monitors, but actually with the VT machines piled up. There's a massive wall of the blooming things at Plesley Vale now. Yeah, mostly Sonys. Dominic says, my vintage Sony Hi-Fi is all set up in the new place and sounds even better in the new room. Oh, you must have got better acoustics then, have you, Dominic? Better acoustics in the new house than in the old one. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Have you got your reel-to-reel sorted out though? And your World of Sport wrestling soundtrack. Dominic has got a large reel-to-reel, a 1/4-inch tape reel that he played me, and he said, "What's this?" to me one day, and it appears it's the soundtrack that they used to use on World of Sport during the wrestling on a Saturday afternoon, because it's got all kinds of little jingles and backing tracks and announcements and things that relating to the old wrestling on a Saturday afternoon. Really interesting tape. I have no idea where that came from, but really interesting tape. Wesley says, what music are you playing on it, Dominic? Oh, that's a good question. He says, yeah, the reel-to-reel is working. Brilliant. Yeah. What music are you playing? Chris says, Andy, did my email come through? Because I'm not sure if my email will work again. I'm sure it will, Christopher. They normally do. But the problem I have, the reason I miss them sometimes, is I get so many emails, 99.9% of which are spam, across about 4 or 5 different email accounts. And I have to sit there either on my phone or on my computer going delete, 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 getting rid of all the spam ones. And you kind of get muscle memory by deleting all the spam ones. So when you come to one of the highly unusual ones that's not spam, you sometimes delete it by accident. So that's the problem I have in general. But for some reason, when I'm doing this stream, the emails don't come through, and I think it's because sending this video out across the internet using the home broadband connection, I think it uses such a lot of bandwidth, it doesn't leave enough bandwidth to sort of grab the emails at the same time, or at least not to do it very well. So I probably won't get an email, particularly a big one with pictures in, until after we've gone off air and I've shut OBS down. It's just a weird thing that it does. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But it should ping on my phone. If it comes through while we're on air, it should also come through to my phone and ping on my phone as well. Dominic says, I listen to all sorts, mainly classical, but I was listening to Hunky Dory by Bowie earlier. I'm the only person in the music world, when you say Bowie, who goes, wow, do you mean Bowie Jane? Not David Bowie, Bowie Jane, who is an Australian singer. But she's very good though, Bowie Jane. I met her on a rooftop in Sheffield. It's a long story. Christopher says, also I got a box full of 1960s, 1970s and 1980s records for free from the side of the road. Cracky, that was a good score, Christopher. Because records are coming back. Vinyl is return. Well, don't know about in Australia, but here certainly vinyl is back in a big way. Yeah, and it's mega expensive now, new vinyl as well. Yeah, so you've done quite well to get those, Christopher. The question is though, are they playable? Are they any good, or are they all scratched and stuff? Is that why somebody threw them out? You'll have to check them out. But records and how playable they are depends a lot on the deck you play them back on. I remember a guy in the BBC archives, and he did a demo once about how to play a broken record, and you know they've got an archive with must be millions and millions of records in it, and one of the big problems they have is knowing what sort of sleeve to put them in, because certain sleeves, certain plastics and papers and that, over many years they react with the record. You know, there's a weird chemical reaction goes on that can damage the record if you're not careful. And when they've got as many millions as they have, if you have to suddenly change all the sleeves, you know, it's a thankless task. But what he did, he went into the archives and he fetched out a shellac record, a 78, and it was literally broken in half, this record, because they were, apart from being mega heavy, they're also mega brittle shellac. They're like the Diacon of the record world, shellac records. And this 78 was broken in half. It got broken somehow in the archive while it'd been there, and he said, well, it'll still play if it's a clean break. And I'm going, well, how the hell are you going to do that? And he just got an ordinary turntable, fairly high quality turntable, because it's BBC archives. You know, they don't have rubbish hardware, the BBC. They always pay over the odds for stuff. But I can't remember what it was. My guess is it was probably a Sony. And he got this turntable with an adjustable tone arm, so you can adjust the weight on the tone arm. And he set the weight of the stylus to be quite heavy. And he put half this record on the turntable and the rubber mat on the turntable, and then he just put the other half up to it, and then he just got a bit of masking tape and taped it together across the middle where the label would have been. Started the thing going, put the tone arm on it and played it, and he'd managed to line it up so well. It was such a clean break in the shellac that he lined the tracks up, and when the stylus went over the break, it just did a bit of a on the recording, and he re-recorded it, you know, onto like a computer or something. He made a digital copy of it, so the music's going, and it goes where it's going across the crack. But then he could edit those little out, and it was a perfect recording of of a literally broken record. So if your favourite record gets broken in half or anything, do not give up hope. There is a chance it can still be played. And that, I mean, if it got broken into a gazillion pieces, like shellac records sometimes do, then yeah, it might be a bit harder. But if it's only 2 or 3 bits, it's worth having a go at playing it. Now, what it did to the stylus on that on that deck, I wouldn't like to say, going over this break all the time, but it's like this: if you've got a rare record that's broken, it's worth knackering up a stylus if you can get a recording back off that record, isn't it? like when they knacker up video heads because of sticky shed syndrome and all that sort of malarkey, but they have to play it at least once to get the recording off. But yeah, it's all interesting stuff. Absolutely fascinating place. If ever you get a chance to go and visit the BBC's archives or anything, and one of the best ways to get it in is give them something back. You know, something that they've lost. If you're lucky enough to find a tape or video or something they've lost, offer it back to them and say, when I bring it back, is there any chance I could have a little look round? And if it's something they particularly want, like an episode of Doctor Who or something, I'm sure they'd be happy to give you a tour round. But it's an absolutely fascinating place. And some of the things they do with restoration, it's just mind-boggling, particularly with colour restoration onto black and white video. It is now mind-boggling. What they do, they can take a black and white film copy of a colour programme, because what they used to do, when they were making stuff in colour in the 1970s, early to mid 70s and that, Doctor Who's a really good example. If it was something that is sold around the world, a lot of TV places in other parts of the world didn't have all the modern equipment that the BBC had, and a lot of them requested that stuff was sent to them on film, and it was normally 16mm black and white. So a programme that was in colour in the UK often went out in like India or Africa or even Australia, I think, in black and white, because it was a film copy. And the way they used to make the film copy was literally point a camera at a television screen that was showing the programme and turn the camera on and record from the screen. So it was always a bit of a rubbish copy, but it was better than nothing. It's in these countries that have got very low definition black and white television service anyway. But now they can take those back into the BBC, and from that black and white film they can scan it in and put the colour back. And it's coming off a black and white master. And it's unbelievable, and it's all to do with, as Dominic has just quite rightly said in the chat, chroma dots. And apparently what it is, if you look at a TV newspaper up close, and picturing a TV newspaper, it's all little dots, isn't it? And the different tones are generated by different sized black dots and different amount of white space between the black dots. And apparently when they do this colour to black and white film, this colour video to black and white film transfer, there is a pattern in the colour image that the film captures that is kind of dots, and when they run this back, they can put it in, scan this film at really high definition into a computer-based system, and the computer looks at these little dots, looks at the tone and these dot patterns that are microscopically small, and it can work out what colour that bit of black and white originally was. It's unbelievable how it does it, and you think, well, this is like voodoo, this, you know, because you're taking something that's black and white and you're not guessing at the colour like they used to. You know, they used to colorise things. They often just guess at the colour, and then a computer fills in anything that is that shade of grey, that colour sort of thing. But this is putting the original colour back in. I remember one of the first Doctor Who's that they did before they had this technology. They got a black and white copy of the Doctor Who that was quite a good copy, but it was black and white, and they'd got a really fuzzy home video colour copy, but it was just coloured blurs basically, because it was like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of VHS, and anybody who's ever copied VHS to another VHS tape will know what I'm on about. So they somehow mixed the two together, and they used the sharpness from the black and white and the colour from the fuzzy VHS, and that's how they recoloured one of the first Doctor Who's that they did. But now they've got this chromadot technology. It's just, well, it's just unbelievable what it can do. It's absolutely unbelievable. Christopher says the records that he's got, they found on the street, all play well. Excellent. He says, I spotted the box of records when I was going to the laundrette. Brilliant. That's a good reason to go to the laundrette then, isn't it? Absolutely. He says, does the broken record thing work with singles? Don't see any reason why it shouldn't, Christopher. It might be harder. It might be harder. I don't know about singles. With a 78, it's a fairly deep groove, and there's quite a bit of space between the grooves as well. That's why a 78 record is massive, and you only get like 5 minutes of sound on it. When you get things like singles, and particularly LPs, the grooves are not as deep, I don't think, and crucially they're also much closer together. So I don't know if you'll be able to line it up close enough, but give it a try. I'd certainly have a go. If you've got a broken record, I would certainly have a go. But yeah, you can do so much now. If you use Audacity on your computer for sound editing and sound recording and sound editing, there's so much you can do with Audacity, and it's totally free. Whatever operating system your computer uses, there's a version of Audacity for it. It's totally free, and it's just an amazing thing, Audacity. You can do more or less anything with Audacity. It's really, really good. Really good. But yeah, give it a try. If you've got a broken record, Christopher, give it a go. Let us know how you get on. Right. Okie dokie. Right, I think we're probably more or less at the end of the line for today. Remember, we are not here next week. We're having a week off next week because I'm at a stationary engine rally. I hope my leg stopped aching by this. It does hurt. But yeah, I'm at a stationary engine rally next week. So we're not on next week, but hopefully we'll be back the week after. Christopher says, I'm not sure if singles are still made. I think they can be. Don't think there's any reason why they can't be. Yeah, I think some people do still release records as singles, as vinyl singles. Yeah. It's a very niche thing to do. But yeah, I think they do release them as vinyl singles. Yeah, Dominic, send me an email about the Green 746. Yeah, I'd be interested in that one. Dominic says 45s are still made, but not as common. Yeah, it's the plants to press them. That, and I think the problem with records now is it's having the lathes to cut them, the record lathes to cut them, and the people who are trained to use the record cutting lathes. I think there's a guy at Abbey Road Studios who can do it, but you know, it's a bit like cassette tapes. You know, the companies that used to record cassette tapes, you know, they used to have these massive factories full of all this machinery, and it all got dumped. So now, very few around, because the hardware's all been dumped, basically. Dominic says 45s are still made, but not common, which is odd. Because they were once the most common. Well, yeah, but they were singles, weren't they? You know, a 45 RPM record was, is what a single ran at. Yeah, I mean, they just don't make singles anymore. I mean, they still make singles. I think I'm right in saying they still make singles, but I bet they'd be very expensive to buy one now, because it's a niche sort of collector thing, isn't it? If you release your record now as a digital download, there might be and millions of people download it, there might be a very limited run of a few thousand singles done of it, which would be very expensive. But yeah, Gambo says 180G is a lot is now much heavier than earlier days. $180G. Is that what the record weighs, or are we talking about? Yeah, that must be what the record weighs. We're not talking about the weight of the toner. That'd be ridiculous. Yeah, we're talking about. Are you actually weighed a record then recently, Gambo? They're heavier than they used to be. Is that what we're saying? Because that's interesting. I kind of assumed, if anything, they'd be lighter than they used to be, because they'd not use as much vinyl in them. Dominic says the RCA's Dynaflex records were notoriously thin and lightweight. Yeah. I don't quite understand. I suppose it depends how much force you press them with, doesn't it? Because you do literally press them, don't you? You put a big blob of vinyl on what looks like a flat frying pan sort of thing, and then the thing comes down and goes thump and splodges it out, and then they trim the outside off, and what's in the middle is your record. It really is that simple to make a record. Just go thump and press it. It's amazing it works, really, when you think about it. Why does the vinyl not get stuck in the little grooves in the die that's been used to press them? That's what would happen if I tried to do it. Gambo says the new LPs are heavier than the last ones in the 90s. Well, I didn't know that. Not that I bought any new ones. In fact, I think I'm right in saying I've never actually bought anything on vinyl. Not new anyway. Not new. I bought like boxes of records from antique fairs and things like that. But I've never actually gone into a record shop and bought anything vinyl. Don't think I have. Don't think I have. Very rare I use a record player. If you go and look at the radio studio now, there's not a record deck in it. It's one of the glaring omissions from that radio studio. There's no record deck in it. We don't use it once in a blue moon anyway, even if we had one. So Dominic says, to be fair, the thin records allowed RCA to use virgin vinyl like some labels post-oil crisis, with little bits of old label in there, the dead flies, bits of label, and sort of crumbs somebody's sandwich at the record pressing plant. I can imagine. Well, Christopher says he also got some singles in the box he found at the side of the road. So that was a good score, that, Christopher. What's on these records? Is there anything interesting on them? Yeah, records are a complicated thing. And you get all these people saying, "Oh, you get the best quality sound from a record," and that. You know, that's been a debate that's raged for years and years and years. That do you get a better sound from a record or from a CD? And if you want to start a fight, that's the thing to ask people. Do you get better sound quality from a record or from a CD? Ask a group of people that, like blue touch paper and stand well back. That'll always end up in a fight, that will. Gambo says, my newer Iron Maiden albums are heavy compared to Iron Maiden's earlier albums. Maybe it's heavier metal, Gambo. Dominic says, I have an old Sony deck that needs some fixing up, but you can have it. It's in its original box too. Well, that's an interesting one. Not quite sure where we'd put it in the radio studio, that's the thing. Is it one that sits on the table, Dominic, or do you have to let it into the table, or can you do both? Here's the thing about record players. I think this is the reason that record players went out in the first place, because they take up rather a lot of space. Although I did once meet somebody who had an upright one. I went to a party once. A friend of a friend was having this party. I think it was a birthday party or something. And they were playing music at the party like they do, and it was being played on an upright record player like this. And I just stood there looking at this thing, going, "How the hell does that work?" Because it wasn't totally upright. It was sort of at a bit of an angle like that, but it was more upright than not, sort of thing. I thought, that's magic, that is. That would have been about 1990, 1991-ish, something like that, so it's quite a long time ago. Christmas said, I got a rare 1966 Bettel record, but later in the week I will send a photo, show the records I found. Bettel? Do you mean Bettel or do you mean Beatle? I think it might mean Beatle. I think it might mean the Beatles. Are there any rare Beatles records? I didn't think there were any rare Beatles records, because there were so many of them. Yeah, what makes records rare is when people played them. You know, it's a funny thing. I was talking to a guy who collected toys once, a long time ago now, and he collected like dinky toys and stuff like that. And he said the reason that some of these toys are now worth a lot of money is because they all got played with and they all got all the paint chipped off them and yada yada yada. And now finding one in good condition is very unusual. There aren't many around, let alone in the box. He said, but these companies that are now making die-cast toy cars and that, he said, and people collect them, he said, they'll never be worth anything, because if they make 500,000 of one toy, there will be, in 10 years time, he says, there will still be 500,000 of them that are mint boxed because nobody's ever played with them. He says, so they will never go up in value, new ones. He says it's only old ones that will be valuable. And I think he might be right, and I think the same thing might happen to records, because I have a suspicion that people that buy vinyl these days don't play it. I have a suspicion that they buy it, but for day to day listening to music, well, they can't play it, can they? Not unless they're going to carry a record player around with them everywhere they go. You know, and I bet you, if you buy a record now, I don't know, because like I said, I've never actually bought a record. Maybe Gambo can tell us, but I bet you, if you now go and buy a physical record, I bet you it comes with a code, so you can also do the digital download of the same tracks on it, or the same album on it, so you don't actually have to play your record, because theoretically a record will wear out if you play it a load of times, no matter how good your record player is and how careful you are. Theoretically, eventually it will wear out. Dominic says the best quality sound I've heard is reel-to-reel tape. That's an interesting thought. I'd say that depends on the speed it's going at, Dominic. What about the U-matic videotape masters that they used to use for CDs? That should be higher quality than reel-to-reel tape, because it's recording more information per second, because it's stripping it across a 1-inch piece of tape at an angle, isn't it, because of the rotating head. So that should be like a really high definition sound, that, if you were to get one of those PCM audio U-matic audio masters, that should be really good quality. Christopher says, are Beatles records still made, Andy? I don't know. Shall I say something controversial? It's never stopped me before, has it? Not into the Beatles. I don't think they're very good. Like blue touch paper and stand well back. Yeah. 60s music, really. I'm not keen on 60s music at all. It always sounds tinny to me. It always sounds tinny. I always think, where the hell's the bass on? And I think it's just because they didn't have the technology to record the bass, or even produce the bass in the first place with the instruments they've got. But it always sounds tinny, 1960s music to me. I'm really, really not a fan. Not a fan at all. Everybody who's ever done a who's ever like re-released an old track that they've redone, or everybody who's ever done a cover version of an old track, if it's a track from the 60s, the person who's done the cover has always done it better than the original people did, purely and simply because the technology is better now to record it. But I wonder what the Beatles would be like now with modern recording technology and not using what they used in the 60s. I mean, Abbey Road was still quite a good studio and places like that in the 60s, but they just didn't have the technology we have now. What I will say they did have microphones that were okay, that they could use, but they may have had reasonable analog microphones, but I think it's what they were recording onto that probably weren't that great. Dominic says it's quite hard to find large reels of tape now. Yes, Dominic. Try finding large reels of videotape. Yeah, and if you do find any large reels of videotape, before you record anything onto them, please do make sure they've not got an episode of bloody Swap Shop on them. Because that's why we've lost all our old episodes of Swap Shop. Because some clown in Christopher's part of the world went to the BBC and went, oh, we want some big reels of like 1-inch videotape. Have you got any you can sell us? Because we know it's it's getting hard to get hold of. And the BBC went, yeah, we've got some in our archives that we never use, you just have to wipe it. And it turned out it was Swap Shop, because there were no cuts in it, because Swap Shop was getting on for 4 hours long, and these tape reels I think ran for 2 hours. So they used 2 every Saturday morning without any edits in them, without any splices in them. So they're like saying, oh yeah, you can have these, wipe these, and there's no splices in them. And that's why we lost most of the episodes of Multicoloured Swap Shop. Yeah, so Christopher, if you come across any 1-inch videotape reels, possibly marked BBC or Windmill Road or something like that, yeah, find a machine and stick them on, because it might be Swap Shop. Christopher will now say, what's Swap Shop? You have to go online, you have to go on YouTube and look up Multicoloured Swap Shop, Christopher. You'll like it, it's got trim phones on it. Dominic says, I prefer the Kinks to the Beatles. Yeah, probably, Dominic, yeah, I'll go along with that. Christopher says, I've also got an ammo box full of cassette tapes. Now you're talking. Now you are. Right. Hang on. I've got a cassette here. For anybody watching this on YouTube goes, what's a cassette? This is called a compact cassette. This thing invented in the 60s. You know, one of multiple formats. Watch Techmo on YouTube if you want to know all about weird different formats of audio and stuff. But this was invented in the 60s. It's a compact cassette, and there is just something about these. I've said this before, but there is just something about them and the plastic case they come in that just makes them very tactile. You can sort of say the same thing about a CD, that they're somehow but a CD somehow, it's too thin really, a CD. It's not. There's some radio stations used to have what they called CD carts. When they got rid of the tape cart machines, they used to have these magic CDs with jingles on that were in a fancy case. So you didn't take the CD out of the case. You put the CD in the case into the machine. It was in a special case with like a special little door on the case, and you put the whole lot into the machine, and the machine opened the case and read the CD, and then it spat it out again back in the case. And they were a bit more tactile, but CD's a bit thin really. But there's just something. Does anybody see what I mean about this? Or am I preaching to the unconverted about this? There's just something really tactile about the size and shape of a cassette, and you can put it in your pocket. You can't really put a CD in your pocket, but a cassette, you can put it in your pocket. There's just something about the cassette that is really, really good. And you're quite right, because I've just realised one thing said, it says regional round number 3, the Midlands, LMS locomotives at work during the 60s. That's probably quite interesting, that, isn't it? And it looks like this was made in the 1980s, because the label on the cassette looks like it's been done with a dot matrix printer, if I can show you this. Hang on a minute. Yeah, if you just look at the label on this, can you see that? That looks like it's been done with an Epsom dot matrix printer, doesn't it? But yeah, there's just something about cassettes that I really like. I do really like. And I remember on Tomorrow's World once, they invented a video camera. It's only a black and white camera, but this video camera used ordinary audio cassettes, and the way it managed to record video, albeit in black and white, the way it used to record video onto an audio cassette was by running the cassette at an incredibly fast speed through the machine. But it did work, that. But yeah, and there's not a lot different to 8mm videotapes, these. And if you get an 8mm video cassette, they're a similar sort of size to this, and they're good as well. There's something tactile about them. And then of course DATs, digital audio cassettes. They're a similar size as well. They're good. There's just something about it that I really like. But the analog format I really like, because you know it's less prone to damage in an analog format. The recording is less prone to damage. So yeah, I really like it. Gambo says, I remember them saying on Swap Shop that they couldn't find the first episode when it was on its last show in '82. Yeah, that's probably because Australian television had wiped it. Dominic says, shame telesnaps weren't around when Swap Shop was on. What is telesnaps? Christopher says, I was able to get 200 cassette tapes in an ammo box. Depends how big your ammo box is, Christopher. You can get really big ones. I hadn't thought of putting them in an ammo box, actually. So them shallow ammo boxes would be about right, wouldn't they? Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. I might have to get an ammo box, says Dominic. Why have you got a load of cassettes, Dominic? Dominic says, if you put a tape on a CD, you'll notice it matches the diameter of a CD. No, it doesn't. A tape on a CD. Do you mean a reel-to-reel tape? That might, yeah. Do you mean a reel-to-reel, or do you mean a cassette? A cassette certainly doesn't. It's much smaller. Neville says, have you got a Belinda Carlisle cassette? I've got quite a few, Neville. Actually, I've got most of her albums on cassette somewhere, yeah. I don't think there's one anywhere near. But yeah, when I originally used to buy Belinda's albums, I used to get them all on cassette so I could play them in the car at the time. Because she didn't have CD players in cars. I mean, she didn't have CD players in the early days of Belinda. But yeah, I had a lot of it on cassette. Yeah, what she did. Dominic says, do you have a cassette deck in the radio studio? Yes, Dominic, we do. It's a fairly recent introduction. It probably wasn't there when you visited, but yes, there is a twin cassette deck in the radio studio now. A rack mounted one, so it's all in the rack. It's on the desk. But yeah, but again, we don't use it much because most of the stuff that we play in the radio studio is played off of the server for the station. You know, it's played out of the library of songs that have been specially ingested into the server for the station, so the radio studio can log what it's playing, sort of thing. Dominic says the length of a cassette is the same as diameter of a CD, as it was one of the design constraints set by Philips, the length of a cassette is the same as a diameter of a CD. The length of a cassette. So, are we meaning from there to there is the same as the width of a CD? Is that what we're saying? From there to there is the same as a CD. Neville says, I used to record songs from the top 40 on Sundays onto cassette in the old days. Didn't we all, Neville? Didn't we all? That'd be really easy now, because radio presenters on the BBC now do not talk over the intros and outros of songs. Have you noticed? They don't do it at all. What's this about? Dominic, I'm going to have to disagree about this, Dominic. The length of a cassette, if I'm understanding this right, the length of a cassette is the same as a diameter of a CD, as it was one of the design constraints set out by Philips, I think. But it's not. That's a CD, yeah. That is actually a CD, believe it or not, of the Eurovision Song Contest from a few years ago. What on earth year was that? I think that's probably the year that Ruth Lorenzo was in the Eurovision Song Contest. Because I kind of know Ruth Lorenzo. Molly, Children of the Universe. What year was that when we had Children of the Uni, Children of the Uni, Children of the Universe? Yeah, was she on it for Spain then, Ruth Lorenzo, in this? Spain, yeah, Ruth Lorenzo, Dancing in the Rain. Yeah. Nice girl, Ruth Lorenzo. Absolutely lovely. Yeah, been to see her live. Spoke to her on the phone on a radio show. Made a 10-minute interview, last nearly an hour. Yeah. But yeah, so what we're saying, Dominic, is that's supposed to be the same size as that, are we? Yeah? So, what you're saying, if I've understood this correctly, is that they are the same size. Like that. But they're not, because when you bring them together, they're just not. Are they the same that way, though? No, they're not even the same that way. Is that what we're saying? Gambo says, yeah, I used to record songs I liked from the top 40 and I hated when the DJ spoke over the beginning or the end of the track. Oh, well, hello and welcome to BBC Radio 1, and today at number 5 it's number 5. Oh, I just got to say that we're about the passing of the late great Johnny Walker on New Year's Eve. Brilliant fella from the pirate radio days. He's the one you don't hear about much. Everybody talks about Kenny Everett as a pirate and one or two others. One you don't hear that much about is Johnny Walker. He retired from radio back end of October, I think it was, last year, because he'd got various health issues. He called himself Puffin Billy because he was having trouble with his breathing, and unfortunately he passed away on New Year's Eve. So that's one of the great pirate radio people that we've lost there. You know, so that many left now. I think it might be Tony Blackburn. That's about it. You know, it's, yeah. But yeah. And the last thing he did was on Radio Caroline, because although he finished on BBC Radio 2, when his BBC Radio 2 show went off air in, I think it was late October time, it sort of finished at whatever it was, 3 in the afternoon, and immediately it came on Radio Caroline, did about 15 minutes on Radio Caroline, which was probably recorded, but I thought it was brilliant that he finish where he started, sort of thing. Johnny Walker. Can you remember that jingle? Yeah, come on then, Dominic, what are we doing about these? Because these are not the same size in any way, shape or form. So what is it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be the same size as the actual disc? No, it's not even the same size as the disc inside the thing. Look. No, it's a... I think we can bust that myth there, Dominic. Unless you're meaning something else. The length of a cassette is the same as a diameter of CD, as it was one of the design constraints set by Philips. No. Whichever way around I twist it and turn it, and I can't find two dimensions, one on that and one on that are the same. Just can't do it. Chris says the reason I put 200 cassette tapes in an ammo box was because my mum has a lot from the 80s and 90s, and the music is so bad I wanted to bury them in the garden. No, I made that last bit up. Yeah, oh dear, yeah. I tried to think what she's got from the 80s and 90s on there. Yeah. Did your mum have a Flock of Seagulls haircut in the 80s and 90s? Christopher. Did they have Flock of Seagulls in America? In Australia, rather. Did the Flock of Seagulls make it to Australia? Yeah. And Gabbo says, I used to like some of the Radio 1 jingles, like Simon Mayo's Wake Up jingle on his breakfast show. I can't remember. I don't think you ever listened to Simon Mayo's breakfast show on Radio 1. I was hugely into independent radio. I used to date a girl who came from a place called Chatteris in Cambridgeshire, and out there they had a brilliant radio station called Hereward FM, and if I can get the sound of PVR anything like the sound that Hereward was circa 1990, then I'll be a very happy person, because it was just such a polished station. It was really, really good, and I'm guessing in 1990 it was probably mostly all analog still as well, but it was a really snappy, quick station, and the quality of the presentation was just superb. Hereward FM. Yeah, I can remember it like it. I think it's still around, Hereward. They're supposedly been snapped up by now. They've been gobbled up by Global or somebody like that, or Bauer Media or somebody, won't they? But yeah, they used to be brilliant, Hereward FM. They used to broadcast out at the Queensgate Centre in Peterborough. I went to the officers once to get a car sticker, because they had a thing where you put a car sticker in your window. And what they used to do, they used to send one of their junior staff members out every day out into the middle of the road outside the studio, and he'd look for a car with a Hereward FM sticker in, write down the registration of the car, take it back into the studio, and they'd say, hey, if you're driving B764 FLL, come into the radio station, bring your V5 logbook with you to prove it's your car, we'll give you a tenner. And they used to do it all the time, this. And consequently, every car in Peterborough had a Hereward FM sticker in the back window of the car. So it was the most brilliant piece of advertising, because it cost them a tenner a day. Like, and every car in Peterborough had a sticker on the back of it. Whoever thought of that piece of advertising was absolutely brilliant. But they did have another thing that didn't work out quite so well, which was the Hereward FM Fugitive, which was they sent somebody out. Allegedly, they sent somebody out who was a Hereward FM Fugitive, and they gave clues to roughly where the Hereward FM Fugitive was going to be every day. They gave out cryptic clues. And the thing was, they said, if you approach him and say to him, are you the Hereward FM Fugitive? Said, oh, it could be a her, it could be a her, it could be him or her. If you approach them and say, are you the Hereward FM Fugitive? If it is the Hereward FM Fugitive, they will give you a cash prize. And I can't remember what it was, but it was a reasonable amount of money. I think like £1,000 when it started. And he said, if he gets to the end of the week, we'll put another £1,000 on. And the thing was, nobody did it. Nobody played the game. Nobody went up to anybody, I don't think, who went, are you the Hereward FM Fugitive? And consequently, it went on for weeks, which turned into months. And I don't remember for certain, but I think the cash prize kept going up. And it got to some phenomenal amount, and I don't know if anybody ever caught him, the Hereward FM Fugitive. But yeah, that didn't work quite so well as the car stickers, because nobody could find him. And in the end, they were like willing people to find him so they could stop doing it, and because nobody could. But yeah. But did he get caught in the end, the Hereward FM Fugitive? I'd love to know if he got caught or not in the end. I've got no idea. But I know it went on for months and months and months. But I don't know if anybody did catch him in the end. But yeah, they were a brilliant station, Hereward FM. Loved them loads. They were a proper independent local radio station. And really, really good, and really strong signal as well around Peterborough. You could get it for miles. But yeah, but all our local radio stations in the UK have now been swallowed up by people like Bauer Media and all that kind of malarkey, and yeah, and it's just all gone very homogenised. Lots of different stations all playing the same blooming programme, homogenised crap, basically. Yeah, I mean, in this part of the world, Hallam FM out of Sheffield, that was another good station. They used to have a brilliant phoning show at night, they did, called Night Owls. Really, really entertaining show. Of course, it's all took over by the big multinationals. I'm not quite sure how they've been allowed to do it, because I thought local radio had to be local, but it's not anymore, you know, because now you've got people like Emma Bunton from the Spice Girls presenting the show on your local radio station, but the thing is, she's presenting that same show on every local radio station right across the UK. You know, and you can drive from London right up to Scotland and just keep retuning to different local radio stations, but listen to the same show all the way up. It's ridiculous. Which is what we're trying to fight at PVR. But even on small internet stations like we are at PVR, they've kind of got a similar problem, but for different reasons. Because they run a limited number of syndicated shows. There aren't enough syndicated shows out there. So people will syndicate their show to 20, 30, 40 stations. So the same show is on every blooming station that you come across. And again, that's something we want to fight against at PVR, which is kind of why I want to make all our own shows, really. I don't really want to run syndicated shows unless I absolutely have to. Gambo says he even requested it on his show once. The jingle, it was so good. So while everybody else was requesting like Adam and the Ants and Bucks Fizz and Wham and stuff like that, you went on Simon Mayo's show, Gambo, and said, "Can you play that jingle, please, Simon?" Did he do it? Did he play it? I bet he probably did, didn't he? What happened to Simon Mayo? Is he still around? I've not seen him for years. Christopher says, ammo boxes are a perfect storage box for cassettes, because ammo boxes are fire, water and bulletproof. They're not always waterproof. I've got some ammo boxes with holes in the side, like ventilation holes in the side of them. Unless that is something the army did when they were getting rid of them, sort of decommission them as ammo boxes. But they have got like proper holes in the side of them. So they're certainly not waterproof. But it's kind of good that they have holes in a way, because with it being such a wet, humid atmosphere here in England, I can imagine you could put something in an ammo box and it would get condensation on the inside when the temperature changed. And that. So I imagine things in a sealed ammo box would get wet if there's no airflow around them. Anyhow, I believe that is probably about as far as we go today. Time is approaching. Well, it's just gone 20 to 9 actually. I better get off air before I turn back into a pumpkin. But we will be back here in 2 weeks' time. Gambo says yes, they did play the jingle for him because they also liked it. And it says he's on Greatest Hits Radio now in the afternoon. Is he? Greatest Hits, the radio station that missed an S out somewhere. Think about it. Right, I will leave you with that. And we will see you in a couple of weeks' time. 2 weeks' time back. Same time-ish, same place, but 2 weeks from now. So we're going to be missing next week because I'm going to be at Fiskerton near Newark at a little stationary engine crank up next week. So until next time, have a fantastic week that is ahead. Dominic's going to send me an email about his Green 746. Christopher sent me an email already, apparently, although it's not arrived here yet, about his ammo box full of cassette tapes. That'll be interesting. I'm going to have a look what Christopher's got on his cassettes. So we will have some photos, if nothing else, for you in a couple of weeks' time. Plus, a somewhat unusual phone. It's one that you phone collector buffs will recognise, but you'll go, wow, you got one of those. One's been on before. This is the third one that I own, kind of, because I've got some bits of one as well. But yeah, this one's a different colour to any I've ever seen before, and they have a very interesting story behind them. This particular type of phone, they always have an interesting story because of where they've come from. So we've got to work out where this particular one has come from, but it's not arrived here yet, so I can't really tell you yet. But we will do that, all being well, in a couple of weeks' time. Remember, there's the Buy Me a Coffee thing somewhere down here. If you like what we do here, I think it costs about £2 just to click the Buy Me a Coffee button, just to buy one. You can buy 10 coffees if you want and make me into a right caffeine head. No, I don't actually spend it on coffee, at least not all the time. Sometimes I spend it on McDonald's. But we will see you back here in a couple of weeks' time. 6:30 once again here, mad, bad and dangerous to know. Until then, keep listening to your vinyl and also your compact cassettes. And Dominic, how does a CD get to be the same size as a cassette? I'm not going to sleep now until I know the answer to this. So until next time, have a fantastic couple of weeks, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye for now, everybody. Bye.